Good morning. It's Pat Farnack here. And here on WCBS, we talk to a lot of authors. It's part of our WCBS Author Talk series. And we're really excited today because we have Dr. Steve Kussin with us. He's our WCBS education reporter, and he has written a book called Five Freshmen, A Story of the 60s. And thank you for writing that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Has this been percolating, this story, for quite a while? It seems that way.
I thought about it for a long time, and I also teach at Hofstra University, radio, TV, film. And whenever I get to the 60s and the war in Vietnam in particular, you can hear a pin drop. And it was one of those eureka moments. I said one day after class, this would make a great novel to write. And not a documentary, not a nonfiction textbook, but I want to tell it as a story, and that's how it came about.
Now, you went to Cornell 1965, right?
That's correct. That was my entry year.
And there were a lot of crazy, silly, especially in retrospect,
Yes, they were.
deportment rules. Tell me about those.
We were told, walk the straight and narrow or get on the next bus and plane and you're going home. Of course, the most famous one was from the Dean of Deportment, the Proctor. We were not allowed to have co-eds in the room except twice a year. I think it was fall weekend and spring weekend. And there were three rules. You have to have 3 feet on the floor at all times. The door has to be open the width of a book, and a light has to be on at all times. Now, we kind of played games with that one. A bridge table has 4 legs, so you're safe. Put a bridge table in the room. A candle is a light, and a matchbook is a book. So we try to beat the proctor at the game. But by the time I graduated in 1969, who cared? Because, in all seriousness, it was a life and death matter. Those things didn't matter 4 years later. And I had the opportunity to see that 180-degree turn, that evolution, that revolution right in front of my eyes.
All college students have to, or most college students have to worry about finding a job and all of that. But you guys, back in the 60s, had to worry about really life and death.
Yes,
the military draft started your first year.
It was a strange juxtaposition, Pat. Here you were involved in all kinds of animal house hijinks and fraternity stuff. And on the other hand, life and death matters. You would see people being plucked away, pulled off campus, going off to war, and you didn't know what the next day would bring. We started off in a cocoon, in a womb. 1965, we felt safe, particularly upstate New York. And then bit by bit, the war started to touch us.
Tell me about how the military, the lottery, the draft lottery was for you at Cornell.
Probably,
I understand
yeah.
you wanted to be with people when you were there.
Probably the scariest moment of my life. It really was a death watch because you didn't know what the numbers would bring, literally. It was like a bingo game. The birth dates would be called out, and we were told that, in essence, 1 to 120, you're fairly safe, but nobody felt safe. We really weren't safe. 120 to 240, anything could happen. It depended on your individual draft board. 240 to 360, you were pretty safe. But again, let me repeat that: 100 to 120, you were marching to Vietnam.
You were marching to Vietnam.
Right. 120 to 240 in the middle. 240 to 360. For the time being, you were okay. But again, nobody felt safe, and the numbers were called one by one. The room was packed. Somebody had to be number one. Your birthday had to be the first birthday called, and it was very quiet. I expected there to be outbursts. There weren't. People were very quiet. There would be an occasional expletive deleted. Somebody would shout out, but bit by bit, the room emptied out as the numbers were called quietly. When the caller hit 300, I wanted my number to be called by then because I thought maybe I had missed it, but I was 319. But I had no sigh of relief because some of my friends had low numbers, and it was just, I had a pit in my stomach. It was a scary night, and I had a splitting headache. Glad it was over, but it was probably the scariest moment of my life. It was a death watch.
You know, there has been some talk of bringing that back. Sometime in the future. I don't.
Yeah, I've
hope
heard
not.
that too. If depending what our involvement is overseas, and if there's a manpower shortage, I've heard too that it could happen. I hope it doesn't. I just hope it doesn't, because the pall that it cast on the university, I just can't describe.
There were a number of people in the course of Five Freshmen, including some of the 5, who fell off the face of the earth. I'm thinking of Kip was one of them, and I wondered why. In reading it, you didn't follow up. But then again, thinking back to my college days and even high school days, there are people who just go out of your life, and you never know what happens to them. I guess that is life.
The 5 freshmen are fictional, except for myself. I'm real. I hope you. The other 4 are, and one of my friends captured it very nicely. He said they're everyman. I try to create 4 other characters who are a composite, who typify the 4 different viewpoints of students at that point. So none is real per se, but with my own classmates, I did keep up with some, and some I lost total touch with. It was a very dramatic end. If you read the book to the finish, when the takeover of the student union took place, we had a very anticlimactic end. On April 19th, the student union building was taken over early in the morning, and in the book I refer to something which is real. My father was one of the hostages who was taken in the takeover. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was parents' weekend, and the procrastinator that I am, I had failed to get a hotel room for him. So I got a room in Willard Straight Hall, the student union building. I didn't know they had guest rooms. Pretty Spartan, desk, bed, lamp, that was it. So he was close to the action. Little did I know how close to the action he would be when the call came that he was one of the parents taken when the building was taken over. Very briefly, the parents and employees were kicked out of the building, exited the building very early in the morning. And I still see him standing outside, tweed coat and beret, waiting to be picked up. But that's an image I'll never forget. I didn't know what I was going to find when I drove cross campus to pick him up.
Now, you are writing a screenplay based on 5 Freshmen, your book. Who would play the young Steve Kussin, I have to wonder? Let's
see, Tom Cruise or Ryan Reynolds. I fit that, right? That would be perfect. One of my friends said to me jokingly, how about Richard Dreyfuss? So I said, he's not right now. He's not the young Steve Kussin, but I don't know. I'm up for ideas right now, but I'm excited about the screenplay. I'm a big walker, Pat. I walk in the morning. I've directed the movie already because it does lend itself to action, and I'd like to get to writing that screenplay. I'm also starting a second novel about being a high school principal, which I was for 21 years, a very different subject. Everybody thought this book would be about my experience as an educator. But right now I want to work on the screenplay and get that done.
Well, no retirement for you, I guess. Not yet.
No, especially working here with you guys, which I love at 880.
Well, we love having you here. And once again, we're talking to Dr. Steve Kussin. He is the WCBS education reporter and also the author of 5 Freshmen, A Story of the 60s. Very enjoyable read. Thank you for being here to talk about it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.